vida no vale nada si no es para perecer, porque otros puedan tener lo que uno disfruta y ama. La vida no vale nada si yo me quedo sentado después que he visto y soñado que en todas partes me llaman. La vida no vale nada cuando otros están matando y yo sigo aquí cantando cual si no pasara nada. La vida no vale nada si escucho un grito mortal y no es capaz de tocar mi corazón que se apaga. La vida no vale nada si ignoro que el asesino cogió por otro camino y preparó otra celada. La vida no vale nada si se sorprende otro hermano cuando sube de antemano lo que se le preparaba. La vida no vale nada si 4 caen por minuto y al final por el abuso se decide la jornada. La vida no vale nada si tengo que posponer otro minuto de ser y morirme en una cama. La vida no vale nada si en fin lo que me rodea no puedo cambiar cual fuera lo que tengo y que me ampara. Y por eso para mí la vida no vale nada si ignoro que el asesino cogió por otro camino y preparó otra celada. La vida no vale nada si se sorprendió a tu hermano cuando supe de antemano lo que se le preparaba. La vida no vale nada si 4 caen por minuto y al final por el abuso se decide la jornada. La vida no vale nada si tengo que posponer otro minuto de ser y morirme en una cama. La vida no vale nada si en fin lo que me rodea no puedo cambiar cual fuera lo que tengo y que me ampara. Y por eso para mí la vida no vale nada.
All right, Uhuru, we want to welcome everybody back. My name is Sichar Masimba, and
I'm Isoke Kenyatta Bell.
We are with the Black Power Blueprint and the African People's Education and Defense Fund. So again, we are happy to be back in St. Louis. We just left St. Pete where we got a chance to see a panel discussion with Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Chairman of the African People's Socialist Party, and Deputy Chair Owners Ane Yeshitela. And it was a dynamic discussion. You know, so we really appreciate it. We raised a lot of money, and we are still encouraging people to continue to donate to APEDF and the Black Power Blueprint by going to blackpowerblueprint.org. So far, we've raised, through Black Power Blueprint, $2,180 through the blackpowerblueprint.org site. And online through Facebook, the Facebook fundraisers that volunteers and members have agreed to conduct, we've raised a total of $6,523. So it's nearly $9,000, and we want to keep it going. So as I stated, that was a dynamic presentation, and we'll say more about ourselves, but first we want to go to a clip and show you some of the work that's going on that happened today through the Black Power Blueprint. So this is, the Black Power Blueprint is this dynamic economic development project building the One Africa, One Nation marketplace right now. And you can see pictures of Paradigm Construction, putting up the wrought iron fencing that will encircle the outdoor market and event space, which will also include an outdoor garden. So we were able to purchase some fencing off of a person, and they're going to reconstruct it. We'll paint it. They're going to weld it together, piece it together, and this will be a really dynamic feature. And this is really expensive, solid wrought iron fencing that will add a lot of beauty to this space. So we got one more picture. So they've constructed most of the stage. We still have some portions of the stage to construct. They've poured the concrete pathway, which they're standing on right now, poured the foundation for the stage. And we see some more pictures here. And as you see the pictures, and you can kind of see the condition of the neighborhood, this is a real cultural and economic boost to the African community of North St. Louis. And you see them carrying the wrought iron fencing, which is, most pieces are very heavy. I know we had a chance to move some of the fencing when we went and purchased it. So they'll be digging the holes to put the fencing in the ground. They'll weld it together and paint it. And the dirt that you see in the background will be grass, and this will be a beautiful spot. We're going to have a mural on that back wall that you can kind of see to the right of the picture. It's a little bit out of sight now. So this is the activity that's happening right now. And we're going to put up a wood fence toward the back to provide some privacy from the alley. So give it up to the Black Power Blueprint. And looks like we got a couple more pictures at least.
The drilling.
So they're drilling big holes in the ground to put the fencing into. So we are encouraging people to continue to go to blackpowerblueprint.org to donate. I want to turn to my co-host here, my guest here, Isoke Kenyatta Bell, who is a volunteer, which is an understatement in my mind, for the Black Power Blueprint. And I so appreciate Isoke because she found out about who we are and the work that we're doing. She came out, and ever since then, all I have to do is pick up the phone, and if it's possible for her to be here, she will be here. And she has put her hands on, so far, all facets just about of this project. And, she's gotten her hands dirty and had to sweat it out in the summertime with us. And she comes whenever we call her. And she does a lot to support this project directly, but also referring people to us and just winning this out in the community for us. So we want to appreciate you. And I want to just ask a couple of questions of you. Give us an idea of how you met the African People's Education and Defense Fund and Black Power Blueprint.
Okay. It was one, I think, evening, maybe about 2 years ago. Me and my husband was at a restaurant, and we saw a flyer that you all had put out, and you all were doing like this film about, was it Fred Hampton? It was Fred Hampton, in the basement of a church on the south side.
Yeah.
And we'll never forget, I went down there, me and my husband, I actually saw a friend of mine, and you showed the movie. Then after the movie was over, was it you? It was either you, I know Casey was there.
Yeah.
She said something. You did the
well.
presentation. At the end of your presentation, you was like, well, we need people to come out and volunteer to help us. To just come out and volunteer on a Saturday. And I signed up. And I came out. And that's when I came to this building right here.
Yeah.
I mean, and this building was, you heard the man say he fell through the floor?
Yeah.
This building right here, it was nothing like what it is now.
That's
You took me
right.
upstairs, and I could literally see from upstairs to down here.
Yeah.
And so, and I think it was a lot of people who had came in from other parts of the country that
Yeah.
volunteered. And I was blown away. I was like, because I didn't even know St. Louis had an organization that was so grassroots, so hands-on,
Yeah.
like
And
this
got things
organization.
done.
And Blueprint got it done.
Yeah.
Like, no, just get in there and get it done. So I was like, okay, this what I've been looking for.
Right on.
This is what
Very
I want to
good.
do.
And this was under the direct leadership of Onasene Yeshitela, who is the president of APEDF,
Yeah.
who we just saw in the panel discussion, leading this incredible work and leading the economic development work all over the world. And still, she was willing and able to come here to St. Louis, come land on the ground with us and get her hands dirty, roll her sleeves up, very literally. And we worked, and she set the example.
She did.
You know, and we were willing to work in the winter, in the summertime, before we had electricity and heat.
Mm-hmm.
And she was in here before there were bathrooms here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we had hundreds of volunteers
We
like
did.
yourself.
And I was just amazed by Deputy Chair DC of her, at her vision.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Just the foresight, the vision that she had to visualize all of this. And then to see it come to fruition the way that it did,
Yeah.
it was just like, these people are real. I mean, there's no fake, phony, no arrogance, no pridefulness in it. They're here for the people. And that's what attracted me to the organization because, well, I'll just leave it at that. That's what.
Yeah, well, you kind of going into the next question I had, which is, how do you see this project as different or special? What is so significant about this project?
You mean different from like what I've been seeing throughout the years? I mean, like I said, the people, the genuineness that's here, the care for the working class people. A lot of the organizations in St. Louis, when you're talking about African organizations, a lot of them kind of cater sometimes to the petty bourgeoisie, but the Black Power Blueprint is an organization that's trying and that is like making moves. That's like you all say, winning. That's actually doing things in the community. You know what I'm saying? Just the vision that she had with the kitchen, and then I know at one point we're going to try to open up the fourplex to help people transition.
Yeah.
All of that kind of stuff. That stuff matters. That kind of that shows that you are for the people. It's not a selfish endeavor.
Right.
So.
Very good, and that project is still on the way. So we are just moving down the street. You know, we'll finish the One Africa, One Nation marketplace across the street from where we are now, and then down the street, as you stated, we purchased a fourplex, which will act as housing for Africans getting out of the prison system. They'll also be able to participate in the workforce program that will be hosted at another huge 4,000 square foot building that we will be renovating and turning into a commercial kitchen and bakery cafe. So they'll be able to get training there for culinary skills. And then, what did I forget? Oh, and the basketball court.
Basketball court.
So as opportunities continue to arise, we will continue to take every opportunity to take up all the space so that we can prevent gentrification. We can fight this cancer called gentrification, and the white developers who are used to just sucking the blood and life out of the African community in 1,000 different ways. So this is in direct contention with that parasitic relationship we have with the white ruling class.
And a lot of our people are not really aware of the parasitic relationship. They just think that that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, the political education that comes along with the party has been something that has really helped to enlighten me. You know what I'm saying? And so when you start learning those things, you know, you start doing better. I even tell people about it, and people are like, well, wait a minute, what is the organization that I didn't even know we had anything like that in St. Louis? I'm like, yeah, we do.
Yeah, I just got a call from one of those people.
Oh, did you?
Literally a few minutes ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So again, my name is T'Challa Masimba. I'm the Economic Development Director of the Black Power Blueprint. I'm here with a long-time, consistent, very supportive volunteer, Isoke Kenyatta Bell. And we are talking about the Black Power Blueprint. We want to continue to encourage people to donate. Go to blackpowerblueprint.org. Let's see how we're doing on time. Just one last question. Okay. So, yeah, just share a memory of
one of my favorite memories.
Yeah.
Ooh, I do have a lot of them. I honestly think one of my favorite memories was the flag raising. and working here, that one summer I was able to not teach summer school and work upstairs with the kids, the youth. But me and my son came here, and we actually had a chance to see them raise the flag, and that was something that was special for me to see, because when you go in certain parts of St. Louis, you're going to see that Italian flag all over those houses. And so for us to be able to see that flag being raised and have my son here with me to see that, that was one of my favorite moments. So that was a very powerful moment, because it shows, you know, that we are about our people. We love our people. We love who we are. You know, this is our community, you know.
Yeah, and we want to give a shout out to Jawanza. I'm looking for you. Yeah, so, yeah, we appreciate it. You brought your husband in, and he volunteers at times. He was with you at a recent poetry event. You brought your son in. And as you stated, you recommend and refer people to us all the time and show up whenever we have something going on that you can participate in. So we're happy to be here. We want to get, if we can, bring one more guest up before she leaves. And we will have to delay that. But so if we have time, we'll be talking to poets, Fofi, who will be doing a piece for us, but now we'll have to hold off on that. So we're looking for donations. So far, we've raised $2,180 through the Black Power Blueprint. We've raised $6,523 online, and we are encouraging people to continue to donate to this significant project. We are here doing a 24-hour Webathon, so we will be here all day and night to irk you to send money to us. But this is a significant project, and I hope we can see. We've gone to Oakland and talked to Uhuru Furniture and Collectibles, as well as Uhuru Foods and Pies in Oakland. We went to Philly and talked to the staff and volunteers at Uhuru Furniture. We went to St. Petersburg, Florida. We saw a panel discussion there that was held at the Uhuru House. So you see all of these significant institutions of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, and you see the significant work that the Black Power Blueprint is leading on the ground here in St. Louis. So this is where the money is going. And so do we have any more pictures of the progress? So we're going to look at some of the recent photos of the Black Power Blueprint happening right behind us. And we also want to give a special thanks to Phyllis Berries, who conducted a fundraiser. She's wanting to raise $2,500 for APEDF in memory of her son, Musa Abantu, who was a very committed and kind of darling of African People's Education and Defense Fund, who recently passed. And so here we see a photo of the red, black, and green flag, and it just went to the stage being constructed. And this is a relatively recent stage, but the work is happening so fast that it is an old picture at this point. We have almost completely constructed the stage, and we've been working with Paradigm Construction, who have not only been doing the work, but they've been managing the whole project for us. The next step is to put on the roofing for the stage. So it's a word that I just learned, pergola, which is a kind of structure that you sometimes see at Home Depot, the wooden structures, and it has the wood top going over it. And so anyway, yeah, wood roof. So that's what we have outside. It'll be a beautiful site, and this will be a destination for people all over the world to be able to come here, see this significant red, black, and green flag, see this beautiful garden. We want to be able to can food and throughout the year and have families come and be able to participate in that project. Okay.
How has the community been responding to this? Have they been responding to Char?
Absolutely. And one piece of evidence of that is in the last panel, we heard Deputy Chair Onozene Esitela tell us about a hearing that we have tomorrow. And so we have to go before the city of St. Louis to try to get a permit to finish the work here, because there was a question about, you know, the construction. And so we've been able to go out, have community members sign a petition. Many have agreed to write letters. So we have a whole stack of letters that we've had people write and sign for us. And then several will be going with us downtown to show their support for this project. So we look for opportunities to bring the community together, to unite. And anytime we get any kind of resistance, it just gives us more of an opportunity to really go out and reach out to the community. So yeah, it's a positive response.
Okay.
And people are thankful that this community that they grew up in seems to be headed in the opposite direction. And they want to see that. You know, they can recall when the buildings next to them and down the street were occupied, and some were vibrant businesses, and they've watched the deterioration and unable to do anything about it. And they're happy to see somebody here fighting to develop this community in their interest. Yeah. So, again, we want to welcome people to the African People's Education and Defense Fund and the Black Power Blueprint, being hosted by the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, an organization of white people working under the leadership of the African working class, the African People's Socialist Party, whose job is to go out among the community and raise reparations. And we talked about all of the relationship that the white nation has with African people across the world, where in St. Louis, people are living, families in North St. Louis are living off $5 a day after taxes when you do the math. And that's incredible. And it's not simply just that, you know, we don't spend our money right and all these myths that they come up with. The fact is that our communities are being extorted, you know, and exploited, and all the resources are extracted out of our communities in 1,000 different ways. You name it. We are the nation or class that this social system, white people in the social system have been able to make their living off of, send their children to colleges, you know, ensure that they have 401ks and retirement accounts. It comes as a consequence of the resources, the labor, the land, the theft of African people and colonized people all over the world. So we say reparations, we say the Black Power Blueprint, we say the blackpowerblueprint.org, and that's how you can donate. Yeah. So, all right, so we're gonna go to 4 Feet, and she's gonna grace us. If we can have you come here. She's gonna grace us with a poem. Uhuru, 4 Feet, and can you introduce yourself?
Of course. Hello, I am 4 Feet Al-Kiblan, and I am a spoken word artist. But first of all, I'm a revolutionary, because my people mean a lot to me, and anything I can do to forward the revolution will be done.
That's right.
I am Economic Development Coordinator for International People Democratic Uhuru Movement.
All right.
And just as long as just like it's a mouthful, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So I just want to say Uhuru.
Uhuru. So you got something for us today?
Well, yes, I have a couple of things. I had 3, but 2 of them was really long, so I just, you know, I'm gonna do 2.
All right.
Okay. I met the movement in during the Mike Brown murder, and doing poetry. My cousin asked me if I would do poetry at an event that the chairman was speaking. So I said, sure. And that was the night I became a part of NPDOM. So, yeah, it means a lot to me.
Right.
Okay, the first piece is called, which was written in 2017. It's called Art of Life. When art imitates life, in spite of ill-fated issues, misuse like the tail of a double rainbow fading into darkness, we call this a way of life. I think not. I speak of the twisted tongues full of lies and bullshit. Can I say that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I better ask.
Yeah.
I speak of the twisted tongues full of lies and bullshit alibis, saying they got our backs in the black community, needing water to choke from choking on false news, fake news, and continues to stack up. Back up to the meeting you had before we were not privileged to hear. You directed the spirit at the door even more. Beyond the lying smiles and trashing precious dreams put down by Martin and Malcolm, changed and misused to control and abuse. We know now you mean us no good in our African neighborhood, not looking out for our best interests, tearing down our best interest agreements for our less interest, beating up our self-esteem, blocking our dreams, to be all we are to be in life in spite of what we see. You kill our babies, drug your mamas, would be lock up daddy you call deadbeat, making us swallow poison called water, killing us with food, everything we swallow. We swallow the poison of your words that kill us daily. As we protest for our best interests at hand, move out of the way and let the truth stand. Or it's going to knock you down, funny looking clown. We are taking back our dreams, land, pride, and besides, that's our stuff. Revolution, reparation, making our own money, grow our food, educate our kids, build our own homes, black community control of the police. We got you, dude. Look in the mirror. You don't look like us. No tan. You're a black man. You're not a black man working in the enemy of all Africans. When art imitates life in spite of all faded issues, misused like the tail of a double rainbow fading into darkness, we call this a way of life? I think not.
All right, Uhuru. So people must have liked that poem.
Yeah.
Because we got money that came in.
Oh,
They didn't come in
wow.
when I was talking, but they came in when you did the poetry.
Well, you know, when I got the understanding of neo-colonialism and who they are, and you can look them in the face, and when you really know who they are, you can tell that that's garbage coming out of their mouth. And they mean us no good. They mean us no good. They can be a relative, or they can be somebody you just heard of that you think you know, but if they're no good for you, they're no good for you. Now that was an old poem.
All right.
That was in
You got a new
2017.
one? Can I make the announcement first?
Yes.
So we got a $300 donation in from Daniel George. We want to thank Daniel
All right.
George. All right.
Uhuru. Thank you, George. Daniel
And a
George.
name that's going to be difficult. Let's see, Michelle Tranowski, $50. So Michelle, thank you. Uhuru.
Thank you.
All right, so we want to keep the donations coming. You can go to blackpowerblueprint.org to continue the donations. And Fofi, you got one more poem for us?
I got one more, and this
All
is
right.
a newer one. It's not a 2019, it's a 2018. The 2019 needs some more
It's new-ish.
editing. Yes, yes. I wrote that one Saturday. Okay, this one's called I Serve. I serve the masses every day this earth turns. Fire burns as truth lay dormant, collecting dust. Taught to be who I am not, finding my life on the spot, standing alone. Taking from my home I know nothing of. In its place I was given this heavenly place about too high to touch, believable not much. Holding fast is hard to grasp. The extent of the loss I have experienced. I cannot be measured. It cannot be measured, for it keeps happening. It keeps trapping us within our dreams and hopes turning to make believe. I'll see my family hanging on trees. Colonialism is a disease. Revolution is the cure. I serve the masses, bringing political education information on reparation. We are located in all of the places African people are, who lives near and those that are far. We must take up all the spaces, rewrite the wrong causing places upon African faces. Liberation is what we seek. Fist up, fight back, torn down the white stacks. Colonialism must go, because I serve the masses.
All right. Colonialism must go.
Colonialism must go.
And in order for that to happen, we must go to blackpowerblueprint.org.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go to blackpowerblueprint.org.
We have to donate.
That's right.
White people owe reparations.
That's right.
African people have to fight for self-determination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We got to do this.
So we've been able to raise some money. So far, we've got a total of $2,530, which came in through blackpowerblueprint.org. And I see one person that said, what? But wait till you hear this. Through the online fundraisers, through Facebook, we've raised still $6,523.
Uhuru!
So we want to thank Poet 4 Feet, Revolutionary 4 Feet, International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. And at this time, we want to transfer to St. Pete.
We actually have 25 or so minutes, so if anyone wants to get on, we can also play some music.
Yeah. Do we have anybody in the audience that has an urge to? He can't do it.
You could say like why you support that part of it.
I don't want to do it.
No, I can play some music.
I want to be up 25. So we're going to go, I'm sorry, we were trying to figure this out. We're going to go to a music interlude, and we'll be back.
All right.
Yeah.
derecho de vivir. Poeta Ho Chi Minh, que golpea de Vietnam a toda la humanidad. Ningún cañón borrará el surco de tu arrozal, el derecho de vivir en paz. Indochina es el lugar más allá del ancho mar, donde revientan la flor con genocidio y napalm. La luna es una explosión que funde todo el clamor, el derecho de vivir en paz. Indochina es el lugar más allá del ancho mar, donde revientan la flor con genocidio y napalm. La luna es una explosión que funde todo el clamor, el derecho de vivir en paz. Y ojo nuestra canción, es fuego de puro amor, es palomo, palomar, olivo del olivar, es el canto
Aprendimos a quererte desde la histórica altura donde el sol de tu bravura le puso cerco a la muerte.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Tu mano gloriosa y fuerte sobre la historia dispara cuando todo Santa Clara se despierta para verte.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Vienes quemando la brisa con soles de primavera para plantar la bandera con la luz de tu sonrisa.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Tu amor revolucionario te conduce a nueva empresa donde esperan la firmeza de tu brazo libertario.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
Seguiremos adelante, como junto a ti seguimos y con Fidel te decimos, hasta siempre, comandante.
Aquí se queda la clara, la entrañable transparencia de tu querida presencia, comandante Che Guevara.
welcome back. I'm gonna back up a little bit. That's all right. All right, welcome back, everyone, and we want to salute the comrades in St. Louis. Let's give a round of applause for that amazing segment from St. Louis. Uhuru. This has been an extremely powerful telethon that began at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time this morning. And before I say anything, I want to welcome Santosh to the telethon tonight. We want to give a round of applause for Santosh. How are you doing, Santosh?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good, good. I'm glad to see you. Glad you're here. So we're here in the beautiful Aquaba Hall here in St. Petersburg, and we just came from the beautiful Aquaba Hall there in St. Louis. This is our number 13 and a half of the 24-hour Reparations Tuesday telethon, Giving Tuesday for the Black Power Blueprint, Beyond Holiday Consumerism, Reparations Now. So this has been an amazing telethon that had a goal to raise $2,000 in order to be met with a matching fund from the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. And guess what? We blew past that goal $905 ago. I want to salute everybody for such an amazing job. I want to salute the chairman, Omali Yeshitela. Let's give a round of applause for Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela, who was with us earlier, who is the architect of the whole Black Power Blueprint. Shout out and salute to Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela. And I want to send a huge salute to St. Louis, to Charwa, Fofit, Malika, Abdullah, and everybody else, Isoke, and other people that participated in this amazing day. Casey Mackey, let's give a round of applause for Casey Mackey. Let's give a round of applause for Chairwoman Penny Hess there in St. Louis, APSC Chairwoman Penny Hess. And let's give a round of applause for Carly Spurlock and Lou Visarnik and so many others. I'm forgetting everybody who was who participated from St. Louis today. President Columbai and Annette, the president of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement. Wow, what a day this has been. It's been absolutely incredible, and it's only halfway over. So we've got quite a telethon part 2, the second half ahead of us, and I hope that I will continue to be able to construct full sentences as we go forward with the next 11 hours. And I think I will, because it's not the caffeine that has me so energized. It's the support of the people for reparations, for African self-determination, and for the Black Power Blueprint. And damn, the people have really come through today. This telethon has raised $2,905 so far. That is amazing. Wow. And I want to give some special shout outs to some of our recent contributors. Declan, who had an offline fundraiser and raised $375. Shout out to Declan in New York. And I don't know if I think we heard this one before, but let's give another shout out to Michelle Schwanowski. Uhuru. She put in $50. That is awesome. And Danielle Georges, who put in $300, and that's a relative of the great USM, longtime member of the Solidarity Movement, Ruby Gittleson. So shout out to Ruby, and shout out to Daniel, and shout out to everybody who has contributed. So we're at $2,905, and we have a new goal. We want to raise $4,000, not including the $2,000 matching fund. So let's get it up to $3,000 by the end of this interview. You are in for a treat. We're about to have an amazing interview with an amazing comrade who's sitting right next to me. And I want to see if we can get it up to $3,000 by the end of this interview. So that's $95. Go to blackpowerblueprint.org and contribute what you can to the positive, world-changing programs of the Black Power Blueprint. So without any further ado, for those of you who are just now tuning in and you have no idea what I'm talking about, my name is Jesse. I'm a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, the organization of white people working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, led by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, organizing for white reparations to African people, white solidarity with the struggle of the black community inside this country and around the world, fighting for social and economic justice, power over their own lives and communities. And I'm joined today by Santosh, who is a member of the Uhuru movement here in St. Petersburg and is also involved in the solidarity work. And it's a great honor to have you on the program today. And we're going to be talking with Santosh about how you got involved in this movement and why, as an Indian person, you felt it was so important, and you continue to feel it is so important to be involved in the struggle for the liberation of African people. So first, tell us about yourself and how you first met the Uhuru movement.
Uhuru, Jessica, I'm really honored to be on the show and to be part of this historic reparations challenge that we're having of sorts. It's a webathon for 24 hours that has not been done before.
Yes.
How I got into the movement is a very good question, because I have been kind of gearing up to be part of the Uhuru movement for the last decade, I would say. I did college in India, and from then I came to the US to do my master's in grad school in Buffalo, New York. And in Buffalo, New York, I think growing up in India, I had some relative privilege because I come from one of the upper caste, but also I'm not from the Brahmin caste. So we, growing up, have experienced both discrimination and also seen my community being discriminating against Dalits or the other lower castes in the community. So seeing that, I think I had a perspective where I'm like neither here nor there kind of thing. It's kind of being on the social ladder. I also come from a middle class family in India. Both my parents were teachers. Relatively, we were better off than the other populations that are in India. But we also saw the other populations were very rich, and there was always this divide that we had culturally and psychologically growing up. That and growing up, I think India still has this policy, a kind of an affirmative action policy called the reservation system, which was included in the Constitution of India by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who is himself a Dalit, but he was a scholar of his time. He was the first one to do an economic analysis of what the British did to India, and he also did an economic analysis of how the upper caste exploit the lower caste and what labor is sought from them. And he put into the Constitution what we call as the reservation system. So growing up, people from, or kids from my era who were the late 80s and the early 90s who grew up, we grew up into what was the, from socialist national program, we became a neoliberal policy change that happened during the 90s, which, according to most of my peers who grew up in that day, basically it liberated a lot of funds for them. There was quote unquote trickle down effect which was going on. But this is also the period the farmer suicides have increased. This also the period that the exploitation of the Adivasis or the indigenous communities has increased, where the forest land has been taken over and converted to industrial use. And when I came to the US, I had these issues at the back of my mind. There's one incident in college where there were all these caste-based groups that we had, and I tried to team up with the professor and a few other students to basically form an anti-caste, anti-discriminatory group. At the end of the day, I was only left with 4 people beside me. And all these 4 people belonged to one of the Dalit communities or the lower communities. All the people who belong to the Brahmin caste or the upper caste basically said, oh, we don't want to deal with this policy or like anything that you want to do against the upper caste hegemony in the campus. We just want to say that you should not talk to people, kind of thing. And these were the people who also actually had the reservation system who brought them into that structure, and they excelled in life. So that's when I came to the US, and with this back of my mind, I was still in the middle of the road where I was like, oh, maybe neoliberal policies are not that bad, kind of thing. And once I moved to the US, I also started volunteering with another organization where I got in touch with the rural population of India, the struggles going on in the forests of India. And I was less on the fundraising side, more on the activism part of trying to be the campaigns coordinator of the group.
What was the group called?
It was called the Association for India's Development. And we were working very heavily in the advocacy part of forest rights, more towards empowerment of the communities which are marginalized. That, and I think when the Black Lives Matter first came into the picture, that was the transformation where, until that point, I was not sure, like I did see the discrimination going on, but I was not sure what is going on, because I always lived in a protected pocket of wherever I was in my own shell of what I was doing. And once the Black Lives Matter movement came about, I kind of saw the similarities in the struggles going on in India against the nationalist movement, against the hegemony of the caste system, against the hegemony of the social structure that has been built into it, the colonial structure that has been built into the Indian system, and what was going on in the US. What happened in the US kind of made me understand what was going on back in India. And then I think once I moved to St. Petersburg roughly 2 years ago now. And I have been looking for organizations, but I was not getting any good recommendations from my friends. I've been trying to find out about groups. But I think one fine Saturday morning, I think it was probably October last year, September, I went to the Saturday morning market, and there was Comrade Jackson, Comrade Ann, and David who were there. And reparations is a word which really struck me when we were talking about it, because reparations is something that we have been talking about in the Indian context, to the indigenous communities, to the Dalit communities who have been marginalized all these centuries and millennia. But that is something that is always contested back in India. But at the same time, the Indian community also seeks reparations from the British for the colonial rule that we had.
Yes.
So understanding that the African community in the US is not viewed as same as a white citizen, where the whole structure that is set up is to benefit the white person or the white European rather than all citizens as a whole, is something that I kind of see in the Indian structure as well. And my belief that the leadership of any movement should always come from the most marginalized. And USM actually basically working under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party, the chairman Omar Yashtel leading the whole movement.
Right.
That was very critical for me to get into the whole movement, the Uhuru movement.
Wow. Thank you, Santosh. Really appreciate you laying all of that out. And just two questions for my own clarification. The Dalit scholar that you mentioned earlier, you said that he added something to the Constitution. What was the word that you used?
It's called the reservation policy.
Reservation?
Yeah.
Okay. And could you just expound on that?
Yeah. So Dr. Ambedkar basically wanted to have a separate legislature for the Dalit community itself. This was something that was contested by Mahatma Gandhi.
Okay.
And Mahatma Gandhi actually went on a fast, it's called the Pune fast.
Yeah.
He did not want that to separate people. So Mahatma Gandhi, though he was a freedom fighter, he was still casteist. He believed in the caste system, unfortunately. And he was also, in his earlier days, he was a little racist during his days in South Africa.
Certainly.
And there was this divide between Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Ambedkar on many issues, including how do we get empowerment, how do we get the Dalit community and the untouchables into the main sector.
Okay, so he was interested in almost something like a self-determination.
Yes.
Or an independent legislature for the Dalit people.
Yes.
And Gandhi was opposed to that.
Yes.
Okay. Very interesting. Thank you.
Yep.
So, and actually, I'm going to ask you a little bit about Gandhi and your views on that as well, because he's sort of the most well-known representative of the Indian struggle against the British that we're aware of here in the United States. But the rest of the world, including many people in India, see him differently. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Before I do, on the issue of the caste system, I've talked to you about this before and heard your really insightful views on it. And would you say that the caste system is something that can be attributed to the legacy of British imperialism in India? Because we look at the reality of the fact that the British reign over India resulted in over 1 billion deaths by the time it was all said and done. And whereas in this country we are taught about Adolf Hitler as the greatest face of evil on the planet Earth, of course, as Chairman Omali Shatella has said, Winston Churchill's crimes against the people of India alone make Hitler look like a Boy Scout. So this is an undeniable reality. And in your perspective, how does that relate to the caste system that's in place today?
So the caste system was in place in India before the British came. But what the British did was, so the reason the British or the other Europeans, the Dutch or the Norwegians, but the Dutch, the Portuguese or other European countries came to India was because of the spice trade. And it started around the 16th century, end of 16th century and the 17th century. where we started having these colonies all around the major port towns. It started in Calicut. Vasco da Gama actually came to the west of India, and he started that whole trade with the European trade, and started with spices and then became textiles. That's how the East India Company became a major force around the world, because India was a fertile field for all the exploitation. But what British system did was basically, so there were caste differences before the British came to India, but what British did was basically they used it to their advantage,
right,
in how they got rulers to work for them. So there was not much resistance to the British expansion in India. And most of the reason for that is because they were able to connive with some of the kings. They were able to set up a system where it's like a pyramid scheme.
Right.
You exploit more people under you, we get something out of it, and you'll be under our control, kind of sort of thing.
Okay.
So the British basically laid the foundation, and basically what the reason that we had what is called the Jagirdari system or the Jamindari system, which was, so the Jagirdari and the Jamindari system are feudal landlord systems, where land and property was transferred from the Adivasis and the Dalits back to some people. Most of them were from the upper caste communities. They were either the warrior communities or the priestly communities, and most of them. So the transfer of wealth happened because British wanted to have a feudal landlord system. Because there was already a caste division, British basically came in and basically exploited the system and formalized it into the Jagirdari and the Jamindari system. And that basically took out any land that they had. And the divisions that we see today are basically a remnants, the legacy of what the British did to these communities.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for that. That's extremely informative and very helpful. And just for those who may not know much about this, you mentioned the Dalit people, who are also sometimes referred to as the untouchables, right? And they are, and it's just really powerful for you to talk about how your political journey, in opposing the caste system and having solidarity with the Dalit people and their struggles led you into solidarity with the African Revolution inside this country. And Chairman Amali Yeshitela, in his book, An Uneasy Equilibrium, actually writes about the Dalit people and how they, among other people throughout the world, who because of their blackness, quote unquote, experience an oppression that forms a kind of common identity with African people. And he even considers the possibility that they would be part of the African nation. So it's interesting, just the connections there, and really powerful. So if I can go to another question. So I'm just going to bring it back to the present, and then we can go back through history a little bit. So you played a very important role in the 2019 campaign to elect Eritha Akile Kenyon, which we heard from Akile earlier and talked about that campaign quite a bit. I want to just combine two questions here, if I may. If you could talk to us about your experiences working in that campaign, and also during the election campaign, the Tampa Bay Times published a very slanderous, nasty article where they said that Akile was the most charismatic of all the candidates, but her slogan, "Make the South Side Black Again," was racist and divisive, and that people of all national and ethnic backgrounds should reject it. And you took that opportunity to stand up and say, well, I am of the Indian background, and I, as an Indian person, not only do I not reject it, I embrace it. I embrace Make the South Side Black Again. So why did you feel that was so important? And how you as an Indian person have embraced the African Revolution as your own struggle, if you could talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. It was a great privilege to be on the campaign trail with all the comrades, and Akile was definitely the best candidate that we had. Even if you put all the other candidates on the other side, Akile weighs higher.
Oh yeah,
there's no doubt about that. And the fact that I think the only people who thought to make the South Side black again are white people is something that we should always understand. Even like I had some of my friends say that to me, like, "Oh, you're not even an African. Why do you think that this applies to you?" But at the same time, we should understand that it's not about me as a person. It's not about any individual. It's about the whole system. It's like saying we are attacking imperialism.
Right.
We are not attacking each individual person who is part of the system. And when we say make the South Side black again, we are talking about ending gentrification. We're talking about ending exploitation of the African community. And what some people fail to understand is that most exploitation on economic or social terms always starts with the most, it always starts with the African community in the US.
Mm-hmm.
It hits them first, it hits them the hardest,
Yes.
and hits them the longest. Some people argue that, the reason that make the South Side black again does not apply or is racist, according to them, is because it excludes poor working class white people, or it excludes poor working class people of other nations or other cultures. What I say that they fail to understand is that you have to understand that the African community has been the cornerstone of all revolution, has been the cornerstone of all struggle against all inequalities, and any exploitation that has happened, any gentrification that has happened, they have been the first and the most affected in all of the scenarios.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that, this is not a struggle just for on the mainland US. This is a struggle which reverberates all around the world, which reverberates with all the indigenous populations around the world. If you take into question the Papua New Guinea, Australia, or any places around the world, there is indigenous resistance, there is African resistance all around the world, and all the demands actually are against the imperialist system of exploitation, where most of the people, almost all the time, the only nations or the people who benefit from this exploitation are the Europeans and the imperialist forces which are under the European masters. And as an Indian, there is no way that I could say that this is racist. It is laugh-worthy, basically. To stand against oppression, to stand against imperialism, is the only right thing to do. Anything else is a distraction from what needs to be done.
Yes.
And calling something like that to be racist is basically unfortunate, and I hope they get on the right side of history.
Yes, absolutely. Wow, I want to give that a round of applause. That was very beautifully put. Thank you. So let's go back in history a little bit, and let's talk about the struggle for the independence of India, or what you might say, make India Indian again, and take care of British imperialism, get it out, and struggle for socialism and power to the people of India, which is an ongoing struggle, not something which has been completed. So you are very knowledgeable and well-versed on this subject, and we've all learned a lot from you on the struggle of the Indian people for independence that continues to this day. What do you feel, and you can take this any direction you want, what do you feel it is most important for our viewers to know about the history of the Indian people's resistance to imperialism? And specifically, as I mentioned earlier, I grew up, I went to see a movie called Gandhi with a white guy, Ben Kingsley, a British white guy. Isn't he British? Playing Gandhi. Oh, but that's another story. But anyway, that was my introduction to the history of India. And a lot of other people in this country, we hear about Gandhi and nonviolence and all that kind of stuff. But as you have pointed out, there's a lot more to the story. And there's a lot more to the story even of Gandhi. So let's talk about that.
All right. So the Indian independence struggle, basically, I think it did not end in 1947, according to me. We did get the British out of the country, but that was just the beginning of another struggle. But going back into pre-1947, so the European settlers or the European oppressors started coming to the Indian subcontinent around the 16th and the 17th centuries. And through the expansion of the British East India Company, and the Dutch had their own East India Company, both of them were competitors, and they tried to exploit the country more and more based on they established the Jagirdari system, and then they established the Jamindari system, where it was a form of paying taxes up to the top. So most of the well-publicized and well-talked about stories of Indian struggle always talk about the kings and queens who were from the upper caste and who stood against the British.
Okay.
What is almost always forgotten is there were many indigenous Adivasi. So the term Adivasi means the first people of the land or the first people on the land.
Okay.
And so that is, Adivasis there were a lot of Adivasi struggles against the British occupation. There are also Adivasi struggles against some of the very tyrannical rulers that we had in Indian subcontinent. And I'm very careful when I say the Indian subcontinent, because India was not a country back then. It was an Indian subcontinent. It was a collection of kingdoms, basically. But there were a lot of, so Adivasis were mostly forest dwelling. So they was slightly different from the Dalit community. There's a slight division. But so Adivasis were mostly forest dwelling, and Adivasis basically led a lot of struggles. Couple of prominent leaders from the Adivasi community are the Birsa Munda, who was from central India, and he had a prophet-like status while he was leading the struggle, and that was because of land transfer from the Adivasis to the other communities, and most of them to the British. Birsa Munda basically led a struggle in central India. As an Adivasi leader, he was an Adivasi himself. He basically led a militant aggression against the British, killing officers and a lot of other people involved. And he led a guerrilla warfare against the whole occupation. I think it's the year of 1897, 1900, somewhere in that area.
And could you repeat his name?
It's Birsa Munda.
Birsa Munda, okay.
And he's one such example. He was finally captured and killed by the British, but he was one of them.
Wow.
And we also
He's a hero.
He's a hero.
Yeah.
And this is what I talk about the present day Indian community. Only the Adivasis recognize them. Most of the upper caste Indians do not really know anything about Birsa Munda. They know about Jhansi Lakshmi Bai, or they know about Tipu Sultan, or like they know all the other Rana and all of these other people who belong to the upper caste and upper communities. But the most effective and the most the best aggression that we had against the British came from the indigenous communities. And because the indigenous communities were not just fighting against the British, they're also fighting against other oppressive rulers on top of them.
Right.
And that is one example of Birsa Munda. There's also another leader called Komaram Bhim, who comes from the area that I was born into in India. It's southeast of India. And Komaram Bhim actually was another Adivasi leader who actually fought against the Nizams of the Hyderabad area. Nizams were actually working with the British most of the time. They were one of the richest kingdoms that we had in India. And this land was not liberated until later after 1947. It was in the 1960s somewhere, and it needed a military occupation from the Indian government for that to happen. But he organized people to go against the Nizams for liberation, and he was one of the forest dwellers. He was an Adivasi. He was one of those people who coined the term Jal Jungle Jameen, which basically means Jal is water, jungle is forest, and Jameen is land. His quotation was basically that all the forest dwellers have the right to all the resources that the forest produces, which is something which has been based of most agitations in India against occupation of forest lands in India. And that is something that is even used to this day by the Adivasis as like a war cry, because the ownership of Jal, jungle, and Jameen. And we can also talk about Bhagat Singh. Bhagat Singh was not from an indigenous community, but he was a socialist. He basically was a very young person who sacrificed his life. He wanted to kill a police officer called Saunders, but mistakenly they misidentified another person and killed him, and then put out flyers saying that we were targeting Officer Saunders, but we mistakenly shot someone else. And
Saunders was a British
officer.
colonial officer.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it was Chandrasekhar Azad, Rajguru, and Bhagat Singh. They were trying to go against the British government in a way that they were So there was another leader called Lala Lajpat Rai, who was assassinated by the colonial forces, and Officer Saunders was the one who was responsible for that. So Bhagat Singh, Rajguru, and Chandrasekhar Azad wanted to avenge Lala Lajpat Rai's murder by killing Officer Saunders. So they started with that, and they were traveling all around. So this happened in Lahore, this firing incident where they tried to kill an officer who was misidentified. They put out posters about that incident saying that we really want to attack Saunders and not someone else. And then they were not being caught anywhere, but they wanted to make a statement, and they wanted to build more propaganda for what they were doing. So they attacked the Legislative Assembly in Delhi with handmade bombs, and the bombs were not made to kill anyone. They were made to basically create a furor, and they put on a lot of propaganda onto the floor, and they got arrested. They kept themselves in, and they were sentenced to prison. But while they were in prison, I think all of these people led a lot of reforms inside the prison, but they also had a lot of writings. To this day, Bhagat Singh is revered as the most lionized person in the independence struggle, both in Pakistan and India. Even to this day, even like this last week, there were student protests going on in Pakistan where they held up signs of Bhagat Singh.
Wow.
And he had such a large influence on the whole socialist movement in India. If I may, I have one quotation from his book. This is writings from his jail.
So, for anyone who's just tuning in, we're speaking with Santosh about the history of the struggle of the people of India, and we're about to look at a book of letters, or the notebook from the time spent in jail, from Bhagat Singh, who is one of the most celebrated Indian resistance fighters of the anti-colonial era.
Yeah. So this was a letter that he wrote to B.K. Datta while he was in prison from Lahore. So it goes as, "Dear brother, the judgment has been delivered. I'm condemned to death. In these cells, besides myself, there are many other prisoners who are waiting to be hanged. The only prayer of these people is that somehow or other they may escape the noose. Perhaps I'm the only man amongst them who is anxiously waiting for the day when I'll be fortunate enough to embrace the gallows for my ideal. I will climb the gallows gladly and show to the world as to how bravely the revolutionaries can sacrifice themselves for the cause. I'm condemned to death, but you are sentenced to transportation for life. You will live, and while living, you will have to show to the world that the revolutionaries not only die for their ideals, but can face every calamity. Death should not be a means to escape the worldly difficulties. Those revolutionaries who have by chance escaped the gallows should live and show to the world that they cannot only embrace gallows for the ideal, but also bear the worst type of tortures in the dark, dingy prison cells." U.S. Bhagat Singh. This, I take it as a call for everyone to basically, for the right cause that we are on, we should go full on, and there's no other way to live like a revolutionary.
Yes. Uhuru. Thank you, Santosh. I completely unite, and can we just show this book to the camera so people can see? And just want to thank you, Santosh, for bringing this to light. And I really encourage people to read up on Bhagat Singh. I learned a lot just now. I actually saw a film about him a few years ago, and I came to find out that there were quite a few films made about him because, like you said, he's the most celebrated force in the Indian anti-colonial struggle, which was sort of a shocker to me in some ways because, I had never heard of him growing up in this country. I had only learned of Gandhi. And of course, there's a reason for that because unlike Gandhi, Bhagat Singh was not religious. He was an atheist, and he wrote about it quite a bit. And he was a revolutionary socialist who was not interested in nonviolent, negotiation with the British. He wanted to get them out by any means necessary. So, and like you said, he was involved in struggling not just against the British, but against all forms of oppression, including class oppression that might remain even after the British were overthrown. So really powerful to hear your perspective on all of that. And I'm interested in hearing your perspective on India today. What are your thoughts on the situation there today?
I think I'll also add to what I had to talk about Gandhi in the previous question and then bring what we are facing in India today. So Gandhi could have stopped the hanging of Bhagat Singh. He chose not to. That is one of the other historical facts that happened.
Wow.
Gandhi had the power to stop this hanging. He did not interfere. And that's when he had a lot of differences with Subhash Chandra Bose and other Indian freedom fighters later on the same aspect. And Gandhi also provided Indian troops to the British World War. He traded Indian people for that.
Wow.
Because there was a promise of signing the Declaration of Independence, and he did that twice. The problem with that is Indian soldiers were killed all around the world. It did not bring anything that we needed.
Right.
And that also angered a lot of other people, because why are we sacrificing our lives for our oppressor? So Gandhi has a non-violent halo around his head.
Right.
That being said, his halo, I think, is privileged.
Right. And he recruited people to the British
Yep.
Army, not exactly a non-violent
Yep.
entity. So,
Yep.
wow.
So that being said, so there are like two ways Gandhi is opposed in this present day. One, because of his ahimsa and secular image that he had,
Yeah.
and two, so that is how the so-called right-wing nationalists in India attack him. But the liberals actually adore him because there's no other icon that they want to hold on to against him. And
Right.
somehow and Bhagat Singh, as a matter of fact, is actually idolized by the extreme right-wing nationals who see him as a Hindu icon. So Hindu nationalist icon. So it's like Che Guevara being on a pop song, basically. It's like no reference to it, but then it's like you take up, like, that's one example. And I also give you the example of so Gandhi was assassinated in 1950, and then Nehru was the first prime minister of India. And so the initial vision of India was a socialist economy.
Right.
But the socialism was not put into the constitution until 1976. So in 1976, the constitution was called the Socialist Republic of India.
Okay.
I think it was Socialist Republic, Secular Republic of India. The exact words were.
So you're saying when the Constitution was drafted and when India was sort of established, it was socialist, but it wasn't explicitly socialist?
Yes.
Okay. And then in 76?
In 1976, the word Socialist Republic was put
added
into
to it. Okay.
Yeah. Socialist Secular Republic, one form of those words.
Okay.
Basically. And then I think, so the initial development of the Indian industries was mostly through Soviet help.
Right.
So the Soviet helped us with machinery, and then we built state-owned industries. But what happened during that period of time is also that there was also like a build-up of power within the family of Gandhi and Nehru. And that has built resentment against the whole Gandhi-Nehru hegemony coming into my generation. What also happened was in the early 1990s, there was the liberalization of the economy, where the then government basically said, okay, I think we are having too long of a red tape, so let's cut the red tape and bring in more foreign investment in the country. And privatization of state industries. So my generation growing up, basically we saw that there was more money, there were more jobs that are being released, because the way it used to be talked about is, I think, is the way that we talk about Cuba today.
Right.
Is like they only have two kinds of cars. Like, as if that's very critical.
Right.
Growing up, my generation basically talked about how my parents only had choice between 3 scooters. So like we only had one scooter or one two-wheeler that we have.
Right.
But what happened after the 1990s is the extreme liberalization of the economy, where most of the remaining forest lands, most of the farmlands have been taken over for industry. There were a lot of resistance to those movements, to those policies by the government, where the people who were again affected were mostly Adivasis, Dalits, and the farmers. Two notable struggles during this period, I think, even to this day, I think, you are required to get the signature of a local village before you take up their land. The way that the government forces state power on them is basically, it's a colonial structure. Basically, this is the other part which is very bad about the Indian Constitution. Is there's many great parts of the Indian Constitution, but this one is basically, we have a legacy of the colonial structure. And the colonial mindset to how we deal with things has been imported into the whole current judicial system. So we have the judge system, or the court system, is basically based on the British model, where even the Indian Penal Code, it's called the IPC sections, almost, I think, I cannot say how much, but I think at least 60 to 70% of the clauses were actually just taken over from the British government, including what we have as the sedition law. I think it was first put into law in the 1890s, somewhere in the 1890s. And that one basically says you cannot wage a war against the government. And by definition of that, you basically cannot criticize the government in any form or structure. And the government can slap a case saying that you're seditious to the state. And many activists, many Dalit and Adivasi activists in the last many years have been put into jail, tortured, and most of them have lost their lives because of this particular thing. So any government that is in power will basically can slap this saying, oh, you're seditious to the government, so we can put you in jail. In spite of that, I think there have been very successful uprisings. One of them is called I would refer to as the anti-POSCO struggle, and the other one is the Niyamgari struggle. Niyamgari is a sacred land for Kond tribes, Kond Dingra tribes, and Arcelor, I think, Vedanta, a British UK-based organization, wanted to take up the land there to set up an aluminium plant and recover, exploit minerals from the I think it was bauxite, I think, from that land. And this Adivasis, a group of 8,000 people population were there, stood against them in spite of, so the local government, it is the state of Odisha, where the government basically said, oh, we can offer you the land. And the company came around and wanted to take up the land. But the people did not want to give up the land. They did not, the Adivasis basically struggled against the government, struggled against successive federal governments, withstood military occupation, withstood military violence, and they are now able to still hold on to the land. This is one of the biggest achievements that they had. And because of them, I think they were instrumental in forming what is the previously called the Forest Rights Act in 2005-2006, I believe, where you explicitly said that you need to have a vote from the local villagers or the forest that you're talking about, from the occupants of the forest, to be able to take over the place for any development issues. That has been watered down by the current government right now, but they were very instrumental in that. And the other struggle is also called the anti-POSCO struggle. POSCO was a South Korean steel plant, which is supposed to be the largest steel plant to ever exist in the world. This is actually also the basis of the Avatar movie.
Avatar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it was this was almost like, I think, more than 10-year struggle where the village withstood the oppression from the state, where the military was involved in trying to dislodge them from the land. This is one of the most fertile lands of, it's again the state of Odisha. It has the world's highest quality betel leaves in the world.
Okay.
And their yearly income was 200,000 rupees without any outside influence. And the government wanted to take over the land, give it to the POSCO steel plant with captive mines and a captive port city and everything, where they would displace all of this fertile land to give it to them. And to enforce that, they basically, I think it was around 3,000 acres of fertile forest land. That's what they wanted. And it took a 10-year struggle with children being on the front lines of this whole struggle, standing against state power, with military vehicles and military actually being used to try to kill these people and trying to kill the heads of the protests and all that stuff. They stood against them, and they succeeded in taking the project off the timeline. And that land hasn't been taken over again.
Wow.
So there are
That's
incredible successful stories.
Yeah.
There are also lots of sufferings that are still going on.
Yeah.
But the colonial form of violence is what is being used to subdue or to overpower all of these movements. And the sad part is some Indians actually do stand in with the side of the colonial mindset. And while, India always was a colonial power, it's not a colonial power, it was a colonial rule for a long time. But what we have imported from that period is also this trying to be the person of power who can exploit other people. And that is a mindset that has been developed by a good amount of population, and that is something that we need to decolonize, and that is how we can move forward with everyone being part of the revolution and improvements.
Uhuru. Well, this has been an amazing interview. Thank you, Santosh. And, I just want to salute how profound and historic your stance is and what it represents as far as, ultimately realizing the aims and aspirations of the people of India, which is, as you've so eloquently stated, found in the African Revolution. That the African Revolution, as you said, has been the cornerstone of the world struggle. That was just so beautifully put. And that the African Revolution carries the whole world on its back. And that's why, white people, we stand in solidarity with the people of India, with all oppressed peoples throughout the world, when we stand in solidarity with the African Revolution. Because this is international socialism. This is the end of imperialism, of colonialism, of neo-colonialism, is located in the victory of the African working class and the African Revolution. So I'm very inspired by this interview. I want to thank you. I learned a lot. I think we all did. I think we can all give that a round of applause. And before we close out this section, as you know, Santosh, we are raising resources, and our very dear comrade Tama Gadini is tuning in, and she donated $10. And I think Tama was one of our first donors 13 hours ago when we started off the telethon, if I remember correctly. So she's in it for the long haul. And also Mitch Luskin put in $50. So that means that we've raised $2,965 today. So let's raise another
35.
35. There you go. Another 35 and get it up to 3,000, and then we're going to keep it going and try to bring it up to 4,000 before the telethon is over. So, Santosh, to kind of close this out, let's talk about the Black Power Blueprint. Why do you feel it is so important to support APEDF and the Black Power Blueprint?
Absolutely. I think economic power and political power is one, and that is the most important aspect of liberation. We can talk about ideals and everything, but if we cannot put material value to that, we cannot defeat the imperialism. And the Black Power Blueprint is, first of all, in St. Louis. It is planned out in a neighborhood which has been exploited for a very long time. And even now the government is trying to exploit the population even more with the spy agencies they're trying to set up there. What the Black Power Blueprint does is give us hope of how the future will look like for the rest of the world. It gives us a blueprint of what could be done, what could be part of a community ownership, what could be part of development which reaches the most marginalized, and it gives political and economic power. Both of them put together is what we get through the Black Power Blueprint. And St. Louis is a beautiful area, and what we are seeing with the One Africa, One Nation marketplace is going to be a tremendous community recreational area, but also where you can have the marketplace. That's going to free up, that's going to boost economy locally. And that also shows us what we could do in St. Petersburg when we say, make this outside black again, is building the community and building economy that basically benefits everyone at the end of the day. And that it can only happen through the Black Power Blueprint.
That's right. Uhuru. Totally agree. Totally unite. Thank you, Santosh. And just once again, want to appreciate you for being on this program. And we're gonna close out this segment. But any final comments you wanted to share before we do?
Let's first get to the $3,000 right now. Okay. Anyone out there donate $35? And I appreciate this webathon, which is going, or telethon as you call it, which is going on for 24 hours. I really appreciate all the comrades all over who are participating in, tuning in, engineering the program and everything. This is a great opportunity for us to build the future, and this is a great opportunity for us to discuss ideas that we have been doing right now, and I really appreciate that.
All right, so as Santosh said, go to blackpowerblueprint.org and put in that last $35 so we can bring it up to a nice 3,000 that we will have raised since we got started this morning at 7 a.m. So thank you, Santosh.
Thank you. I'll just add one more thing.
Okay.
So Bhagat Singh used to use a phrase called Inqilab Jindabad,
Okay.
which is Viva Revolution or Long Live Revolution in a way. And in my own language, it is called Viplovam Vardillali. Just want to say that, and Long Live Revolution.
Uhuru, long live the revolution.
Uhuru.
Uhuru.
صباح الخير يا ولاد عمومنا تفضلوا شرفونا شو بتحب مضيفكم دم عربي ولا دموع من عيوننا بعتقد هيك تأملوا نستقبل من هيك تعقدوا لما تدركموا على غلطة من هيك لبسنا الكوفي البيضة والسودا صاروا كلاب الزمان يلبسوها كموضة مهما تفننوا فيها مهما غيروا بلونها كوفية عربية بتضل عربية